scared about looking into their credit. I've been in this position before too, where you
Right.
kind of want to look at it, but not really want to look at it. What's that dynamic?
I think it's consumers not knowing what's actually there. It's unaware of what is reported and what is not reported on a credit report. I think if consumers knew what is reported and how it's reported, they'd be more reluctant to not actually access the credit report and see what's there.
That's fair. I mean, in terms of a credit report, when you sit down with a client, what's the first thing that you kind of go over? Kind of walk me through step by step of how you go about that.
We want to know exactly why they have bad credit, and what is the lack of them not understanding their credit, or is it them maybe co-signing for a family member, which seems to be the number one issue. So we want to find out why they're here and what's the real reason behind them wanting to fix their credit. In many cases, it's them wanting to buy a home, and if we find out why, then we're able to create a plan that's going to meet those needs.
And do you ever get it where a client will come to you thinking they have bad credit and they really don't have bad credit because they haven't looked at it, or for the most part they know, and when they sit down with you, it's
yes, it happens, but it happens more with the older generation. The first generation.
Why are you pointing at yourself when you say that? You're like 30 years old. What are you talking about?
No. I'm saying in their maybe early 50s.
Gotcha.
People that come here and they just know that, hey, I have to pay my cards on time, and that's pretty much it. I borrow what I could pay back, and consumers might not be aware of what's reported, so they might believe they have bad credit. And we put a credit report is in the 700s, but even though they still don't understand how it works, all they know is I have to make my payments on time. That's pretty much all it takes to have a good credit score, is make your payments on time.
And for someone that doesn't understand what goes into it, what would you say to them? The simple version, because even as a lender, sometimes we look at credit reports and go, like, how is someone really supposed to understand this as a consumer? So what do you say to them?
I mean, it's very hard to understand a credit report. It's
just the basic principles of it. I mean, where to find certain things. I know that, if someone has a question with regard to a creditor and how to get a hold of them, we know where to send them in their credit report for that. So just kind of weaving people in and out of what's actually in the report. I mean,
I recommend for consumers to check the credit report twice a year, every 6 months. I think for information that's not, it's not correct. But even though, like you said, consumers might not be aware of what is correct and what is incorrect. I mean, if you Google credit repair, or understand credit, a million websites are gonna come up, and you could actually access a lot of them. And even in my website, I have a lot of information that is it's going to provide consumers with education and understanding their credit.
And why don't you give that out now? So while we're talking about it,
it's creditrepairsolutionsnow.com, and then I also released a YouTube channel. It's called Credit Education Mastery, where the purpose of that channel is to provide education to consumers so they can understand how the credit works. And all in all, understand and learn how to master their credit.
Oh, very, very good. Okay, so in terms of action steps, so someone sits down with you, let's make it simple in terms of 3 action steps that someone should take. I come to you and say, my credit is jacked up. I looked at it. I have a 550 credit score. What's my first step? How do I start going about getting it repaired?
Yeah, the first step is we want to find out the types of accounts that they have. So we actually pull a credit report. If a consumer has their own report, they could bring it with them. And we digest the credit report. We looked at the accounts that they have, the types of accounts, whether they're in collections, charge-offs, or whether they're late payments. And we want to know the history behind the credit report because it lets us know how we can help them and how quickly we can help them as well. So that's step number 1. And number 2 is find out if they are in a position to maybe pay back some of the debt if they're in collections. If they're in a position where they might have some type of positive cash flow where they can settle the debt, then we know that's definitely on the table as an option.
In terms of that one there, I want to touch on that. What debt do you recommend paying off? Is there certain debt that you pay before others? Is there certain ones that affect your credit score more than others?
Are you meaning debt that's positive or debt that's already been charged off or in collections?
Let's call it charge off, because they're sitting down with you. They have an extra $2,000 sitting around, but they have a bunch of charge offs. How do you go about figuring out which one's the best?
Right. Okay. So the debt, any type of account, if it's not a federal type of loan, right? Let's just say a repo, right? It's been 5 years. So what that means is going to fall off in actually 2 years. So I would maybe not recommend for them to pay it off, because if they pay it off, it's going to reactivate the account. It'll be there for another 7 years. So if an account is on the verge of falling off, unless the lender says you have to pay it off, then you pretty much don't have a choice. But if you're towards the finish line, I wouldn't say pay it off. Now, an account that's new, that they could potentially sue you, and I know that's an aggressive debt collector, I would recommend to pay it off.
Okay, so that makes sense there. And there's some rule of thumbs that people need to be aware of. I know that one you mentioned actually that I wrote down here was checking your credit twice a year.
Yes.
Some other ones I've heard were keeping your credit card balance under 50%, or having a car loan. How having a car loan is beneficial. Are there other ones that play in that people need to be aware of?
Yes. Well, the actual number is 35%, and that's combined credit card balances, not per card. So it's combined. What you do is you get all of your debt and you add it up and you divide it by the actual credit limit you have combined as well. So let's just say you have 5 credit cards and they accumulate to $10,000 worth of credit limits. You want to keep a balance spread out over all cards, or even just a single card, no more than 35%.
Okay, and then there's some other rule of thumbs that people should be aware of with regard to other things, or are those pretty much the standard ones across the board that people should be aware of?
Don't co-sign, for anybody.
And when you mentioned the cosign thing, that's what happened with the loan. The issue with the loan that couldn't close on time is the lender wasn't aware of something that they co-signed on. So
right. Yeah, I see so many stories where the borrower, out of good heart, they co-sign for their cousin, their friend, just to help them out, knowing they have bad credit. And when you co-sign for somebody, they're most likely to stop paying on the account because it doesn't belong to them.
And so does that co-signer have the same obligation and negatively affecting you if you go late?
Yes, 100%, yes.
And I get this all the time. My clients, when we get them in to try to get pre-approved for a home loan, they think it doesn't affect them. They're like, oh, I'm a co-signer with my sister, but I'm just a co-signer. She pays the car. But they think that it's not going to affect them because they're co-signers, but they do. In every level.
And it could affect you in the point where, you just don't even know about it. You were trying to be nice, like you're saying.
Right, out of good heart.
Doing late payments
And another rule of thumb is a lot of consumers believe that, there's companies out there say you're not going to remove, student loans or even federal debt, and that's not true. That's, there's 3 types of accounts that a consumer must always pay, which are federal or state tax liens, child support, and student loans. So, don't be...
There's no way
of getting out. The only way to pay those is, to get rid of them is to actually pay for them or work out some type of payment plan.
That makes sense. One thing that popped in my head was parking tickets, because I know in college we have this conversation sometimes because we laugh because my brother messed up my parents' credit for a certain period of time while he was in college because he would get parking tickets and he just never tell them. So, talk to us about that.
Well, those can actually be reported on your credit report, and they can potentially maybe even, put you in jail for owing too many tickets, because I know on the movie Pursuit of Happiness, that's what happened to the I forgot what the actor's name is, but he got put in jail for owing too many parking tickets, and those actually can be reporting on your credit report. Pretty much any type of debt that you actually owe can be reported on your credit report.
Interesting. Okay, so then let's go back to when someone does sit down with you. Do you go to them? Do they come to you? And then kind of how does that conversation go in terms of what do they need to be prepared for when they come sit down with you?
Right. Well, most of our clients, I would say that 8 out of 10 want to buy a home, and they're either referred by a lender or a realtor. And we will much rather meet with the consumer because we want to explain to them how the process works. Because in order for credit repair to work, and to actually see results, you have to explain the process, because we do require the consumer to do a little bit of late work. And if it's over the phone, which of course we do help a lot of consumers over the phone, I just feel that I'm more of a visual kind of person, so I kind of feel that the whole world's like that. But if they actually see what the plan and what the process will look like, I believe it's easier for them to understand it and to follow through. And then, all in all, we'll have the credit report fixed.
I feel when they meet in person, they're more excited to take action right away.
Correct.
Because they see an actual professional in front of them explaining everything. So I agree.
And they get to meet my entire staff members. We're a team that takes pride in what we do, and we want to help consumers. But I feel that it starts with education. Educating them, because we want to find out what happened. Why they have bad credit. It's maybe because they're not informed on how to use credit, or they're just the kind of person who just doesn't really care and just has bad habits that we have to let them know. With having bad credit, it's not so much how much it costs to fix. It's more so what is it costing you having bad credit. In many cases it's a home.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And I'm sure that sitting down and getting face to face with somebody helps with them actually sharing all the information too.
They have to open up.
We oftentimes have trouble with that, where we don't know how to help you if you don't tell us what's going on. We don't know how to structure a scenario if you don't tell us all the pieces that are going on.
Yes, and especially when dealing with debt, we have to know the truth. If that's actually their debt, a lot of consumers might say, well, that's not mine. I never got that type of loan. and you kind of learn to read body language. You're like, no, maybe this this consumer is not being honest, and we need, in order for us to help them, they have to be honest and let us know, what, that is my dad. I screwed up, or I got mad at them, or whatever the reason is. If it's your dad, we know how to approach it.
Good. And the action steps, I like that you mentioned that you give them action steps and things that they need to do.
Yes.
From the loan perspective, too, a lot of times we get a client that sits down with us that they want to know every rate possibility in every scenario. They don't want to tell you anything, but they want you to give all the information. So I think that putting that legwork in kind of holds them more accountable.
Yes.
They're investing in the time that they're spending to fix their credit, too, and it kind of lets you know what you're dealing with.
Right. I mean, especially if the client, is referred by a realtor or lender. I mean, the realtor lender is literally waiting for us to fix the credit. But if the client is not really helping us help them, the client, based on my experience, they're quick to point fingers and say it's our fault, which we'll take blame for it. But we feel that, what, maybe we're not communicating, the importance of them doing their part enough, where they actually follow through. And the ones that follow through, they get results, because if we lay out a plan for them, there's always option A and option B, and either one of them has to work. We're not going to take a file and say, oh, we hope we can help you. No, we are going to help you. Just help us help you.
Help us help you.
Help us help you.
Yeah, now that you gave me the sales pitch, it made me feel all good. What's the cost associated with actually repairing? Does it case by case, or is it a standard
case by case? I don't believe in a one size fits all for credit repair, because everybody has different needs. And so our fees start at $200 and gradually increase all the way up to $1,200. And it all in all, it depends on the current situation and what needs to be done. So it is case by case.
Okay. And is there any guarantees to that if things don't get fixed?
Absolutely yes. Okay. Absolutely yes. We do have a full money back guarantee. If at the end of the 12 months, if they did their part and they participated and we couldn't help them improve their score, we have no problem issuing them a refund, because we know that ethically it's what's due, and we want to maintain that relationship with our referral partners.
And is there a way to project what their credit scores will be after you do some adjustments?
Yes. It all depends on what's actually being reported, or what they have positive, because a lot of consumers might only have bad credit, right? But there's nothing there positive that can actually help increase the score. So we have to guide them into, okay, once we remove, settle, or fix a negative item, you have to worry about rebuilding credit, because to get a loan, they might want to see any account open between 12 to 24 months. So we do forecast, but it's still always based on estimates, based on our experience, what their score can potentially be after we help them.
Very good. Very good. Great stuff, Rolando. I'm going to give you an opportunity to give out your contact information. If people have any questions, how would they go about reaching you guys?
Yeah, the office number is 562-776-1461 and 562-776-8164.
Perfect.
You also have a business page, right?
I also do, yes. I'm on Instagram as creditcoach_, LinkedIn and Twitter, and all the social media outlets out there.
The places to be.
Yes.
Right on.
Yes.
Great segment, guys. Thank you, Rolando.